I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just going to have to go out there and go like, you know what, 6 minutes is not very long. So
Stevie Nicks never lived a quiet love story. Behind the shawls, smoky voice, and songs millions still sing were relationships that blurred the line between passion, loyalty, heartbreak, and chaos. Some men became music. Some friendships ran deeper, and a few choices followed her long after the spotlight moved on. Fleetwood Mac brought fame, but it also pulled Stevie into a world where love and work were almost impossible to separate. Affairs, breakups, one brief marriage, and bonds that never fully disappeared became part of the story. At 78, those connections feel different when you look back at what they cost her and what they gave her. Join us as we look inside the loves, heartbreaks, and complicated bonds Stevie Nicks could never fully leave behind. Before the heartbreak, there was a girl with a guitar. Stevie Nicks was born Stephanie Lynn Nicks in Phoenix, Arizona, on May 26, 1948. Music reached her before fame ever did. Her grandfather, A.J. Nicks, was a country singer who played guitar, fiddle, and harmonica, and Stevie was singing duets with him by the time she was 4. She later remembered singing "Are You Mine?" with him, and she never forgot how natural music felt. Her mother, Barbara, kept music around the house and encouraged Stevie's imagination, while her father's work meant the family moved often. Phoenix became Los Angeles, then Albuquerque, El Paso, Salt Lake City, back to Los Angeles, and later the San Francisco area. Stevie said moving so much taught her to make friends quickly. She had no time to stay shy or distant because another move could come at any time. At 16, her parents let her take guitar lessons and bought her the small Goya guitar she loved. Almost immediately, she wrote her first song. The title said a lot about what would follow. I've loved and I've lost, and I'm sad but not blue. The song came from real teenage heartbreak after a boy she liked ended up with her best friend. Stevie said she finished the song crying, but something important happened in that room. From then on, she knew she wanted to be a songwriter. Her parents understood that this was not a passing hobby. When she was writing, they left her alone, even if it meant she missed dinner. She later joked that her parents probably feared she would follow the same wandering road as her grandfather. Instead, she carried his love of songs into a much bigger life. At home, she also listened to the Ronettes, the Supremes, the Beach Boys, the Spinners, and plenty of R&B. Those records widened the musical world she was already building for herself, too. By the time Stevie reached her last year of high school, music was no longer just something she loved. It was starting to bring the first person into her life who would shape both her heart and her future. The boy who changed everything. Stevie met Lindsey Buckingham during her senior year at Menlo Atherton High School in California. She saw him playing California Dreamin' and joined in with the harmony. She later said she thought he was darling. That small moment grew into one of the most important relationships of her life. Lindsey was playing in the psychedelic rock band Fritz, and when members left for college, he asked Stevie to join as lead singer in 1967. Fritz later opened for Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, two performers Stevie said influenced the intensity of her own stage presence. Stevie and Lindsey also attended San Jose State University. She studied speech communication and once planned to become an English teacher, but music soon took over. With her father's support, she left college and chose the uncertain path of making music with Lindsey. When Fritz ended in 1972, they became even closer. Stevie later said she was not sure they would have become a couple if the band had stayed together. They moved to Los Angeles and became Buckingham Nicks, both musical partners and romantic ones. Their self-titled album came out in 1973, but it failed commercially, and their label dropped them. Suddenly, the dream they had chased together looked much less certain. Money became tight, Lindsey fell ill with mononucleosis, while Stevie worked waiting tables and cleaning producer Keith Olsen's house. They lived wherever they could, but neither was ready to give up on the music. During this difficult period, Stevie wrote Rhiannon and Landslide. Landslide reflected both the scenery of Aspen and her growing doubts about her relationship with Lindsey. Even then, she believed deeply in his talent. In a letter to her family, she predicted he might go down in history as one of the great guitar players. Neither knew whether music would ever pay off, but love and ambition had become impossible to separate. Then, at the end of 1974, one phone call changed everything for both of them. Fleetwood Mac wanted Lindsey, but Stevie came too. On December 31, 1974, Mick Fleetwood called Lindsey Buckingham and asked him to join Fleetwood Mac. Mick had heard Lindsey's guitar work on the Buckingham Nicks song Frozen Love and remembered it when the band needed a new guitarist. Lindsey did not say yes right away. He told Mick that Stevie had to come too. As Lindsey later recalled, "Well, you've got to take my girlfriend too." Fleetwood Mac agreed, and the pair joined in 1975. The move changed everything. Fleetwood Mac was already established, but Stevie quickly brought a new voice, a striking image, and songs that helped reshape the group. Rhiannon and Landslide appeared on the 1975 album Fleetwood Mac, and her live performances of Rhiannon became so intense that Mick later compared them to an exorcism. Stevie also developed the flowing skirts, shawls, platform boots, and black clothes that became part of her stage identity. But while the band was rising, Stevie and Lindsey were already struggling. She later said their relationship was breaking down even when they joined Fleetwood Mac. Stevie believed ending it too soon could destroy the opportunity they had spent years chasing. So she tried to hold things together until the band was secure. She told The New Yorker that she was smart enough to know that breaking up in the second month could have blown everything apart. For a while, they pushed their personal problems aside and kept working. Their dream had finally arrived, but the relationship behind that dream was wearing out. Stevie later said she reached a point where she wanted to be alone because things were no longer good or fun for either of them. She finally ended it once she felt Fleetwood Mac was strong enough to survive. What nobody knew was that the breakup would not stay private. It was about to become music heard around the world. The breakup that became rock history. By 1976, Stevie and Lindsey were finished as a couple, but they still had to walk into the same studio and make another Fleetwood Mac album. They were not the only ones falling apart. Christine and John McVie were separating after years of marriage, while Mick Fleetwood's marriage was also breaking down. Professionally, the band was rising fast. Personally, almost everyone was hurting. Those feelings poured straight into rumors. Lindsey wrote, "Go your own way," from his side of the breakup. And Stevie hated the line suggesting that packing up, shacking up was all she wanted. She later told Rolling Stone that she resented him telling the world something she believed was not true. Stevie answered heartbreak differently. She wrote Dreams, which became Fleetwood Mac's only #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100. She also wrote Silver Springs, another deeply personal song about Lindsey, though it was left off rumors because of concerns about length and the number of slower songs. Instead, it became the B-side to Go Your Own Way, placing their two sides of the breakup on the same single. Even in the studio, the former couple tried to separate work from emotion. Lindsey later described it as keeping their personal feelings in one corner while trying to be professional in another. It did not always work. Arguments followed them on tour, and one fight became so ugly that Christine McVie said she slapped Lindsey and may even have thrown a glass of wine because she felt he was treating Stevie badly on stage. Stevie cried, yet the band kept playing. Rumors was released in 1977, stayed at #1 in America for 31 weeks, won the Grammy for Album of the Year, and became one of the biggest-selling albums ever. Stevie had once said that devastation could lead to good writing. Here, that idea became painfully real. Even The Chain carried the same tension, built from pieces by the whole group and centered on a bond that refused to break. Their private breakup was now part of rock history, but the emotional mess inside Fleetwood Mac was only getting more tangled. Stevie crossed a dangerous line. While rumors turned Heartbreak into huge success, Stevie's personal life became even more complicated. In November 1977, during the Rumors tour, she and Mick Fleetwood began a secret affair after a concert in New Zealand. Mick was married to Jenny Boyd, making the situation painful for Stevie. She later said, "Never in a million years could you have told me that would happen." She knew Mick's family and cared about them, and she admitted that everyone was angry. Looking back, she said she was horrified by what she had done. The affair ended quickly because both understood how much damage it could cause. Stevie later believed that if it had continued, it would have been the end of Fleetwood Mac. The strange part was that the emotional lines inside the band kept crossing even after the romance stopped. By 1978, Mick had become involved with Stevie's friend, Sarah Racour. Years later, Stevie would describe life in Fleetwood Mac as a soap opera that was pretty scandalous and pretty incestuous and pretty wonderful in a lot of ways. Around this same period, another famous musician entered her life. Stevie dated Eagles singer and drummer Don Henley in the late 1970s. Their worlds matched in obvious ways. Both were living inside huge bands, constant touring, money, attention, and the excess of the era. Stevie later joked that Henley and the Eagles taught her how to spend like a rock star, with private planes and presidential suites. But there was a much more serious part of their relationship. Stevie became pregnant in 1979 and had an abortion. Decades later, she told The Guardian that she believed there would have been no Fleetwood Mac if she had continued the pregnancy, because she could not imagine raising a child while working and using drugs the way she was then. She said that if the baby had been a girl, she would have named her Sarah. Don and Stevie did not last as a couple, but they remained connected through music. And another man soon entered her life through the very career she had chosen to protect. Stevie's solo rise changed her love life too. By the end of the 1970s, Stevie had more songs than Fleetwood Mac could use. With 3 strong writers in the group, there was limited room on each album, so she began building a solo project. She founded Modern Records with Danny Goldberg and Paul Fishkin, and released Belladonna in July 1981. The album reached #1 on the Billboard 200 and gave Stevie a second career outside Fleetwood Mac. It included Edge of 17, Leather and Lace, and Stop Draggin' My Heart Around. Don Henley joined her on Leather and Lace, showing that the romance had ended without completely removing him from her musical world. Behind Belladonna was another relationship. Stevie became involved with producer Jimmy Iovine while he was helping shape the album. Years later, she remembered how quickly it happened, saying that about 10 days after they entered the studio, they were living together. Jimmy was also closely connected to Tom Petty, whose sound Stevie loved. She had wanted her solo music to carry some of that same energy, and her meeting with Petty grew into one of the longest friendships of her life. Stevie once said she had fallen in love with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers before she even met them. She joked that if Petty had asked her to leave Fleetwood Mac and join his band, she probably would have done it. Petty remembered her entrance differently, but just as clearly, saying she came into his life like a rocket, just refusing to go away. Because Jimmy also worked with Petty, he sometimes hid Stevie in the basement when Tom visited, trying to keep his romance from complicating business back then. Their bond lasted 4 decades. He worked with her, performed with her, and later pushed her back toward songwriting when she had lost confidence in it. But just as Stevie seemed to have everything she had worked for, devastating personal news arrived that made all of that success feel almost meaningless. One of the deepest loves in her life had nothing to do with romance, and she was about to lose her. She married a man she didn't love. The day Belladonna reached #1, Stevie learned that her best friend Robin Anderson had leukemia. Robin was pregnant and was given only a short time to live. She gave birth to a son, Matthew, and Stevie became his godmother. For Stevie, the timing was cruel. She later said she never truly enjoyed the success of Belladonna because her friend was dying. When Robin died in 1982, grief took over. Stevie became convinced that the best way to protect Robin's baby was to marry Robin's widower, Kim Anderson. They married in early 1983, but Stevie later admitted that the decision came from pain, not romantic love. "We didn't get married because we were in love," she explained. "We got married because we were grieving." She called it a terrible, terrible mistake. The marriage lasted only 3 months. Years later, she said that everyone involved had been so deep in grief that they were not thinking clearly. Still, the bond with Robin's family did not disappear when the marriage ended. Stevie later reconnected with Matthew when he was a teenager, helped put him through college, and remained part of his life. When Matthew had a daughter, he named her Robin after his mother. Stevie told The Guardian about a Christmas when the little girl grabbed her hand and called her Grandma Stevie. The moment hit her hard. She wrote in her journal that she would be Grandma Stevie. Until death do us part. For Stevie, Robin's place in her life had changed form, but it had never really gone away. She later described the moment in even starker words. "Something went out that day. Something left." It explains why one of the biggest career wins of her life never felt like a celebration at all. That kind of love sat outside the usual story people told about her famous boyfriends. It also came as Stevie's solo career kept growing. The Wild Heart arrived in 1983 and showed that Belladonna had not been a one-time success for her. But behind that momentum, another love was becoming powerful enough to compete with the music itself. Stevie fell harder than ever before. In 1983, Stevie met Eagles guitarist Joe Walsh, and this relationship became different from the others. Years later, she called him her greatest love. She described meeting him at the Mansions Hotel in Dallas and feeling something immediate. "I looked at him and I walked across the room and I sat on the bar stool next to him," she recalled. "And 2 seconds later, I crawled into his lap. And that was it." Stevie called them a perfect, complete, crazy pair. She said she would probably have changed her life around for him and would have married him. Joe also opened a deeply emotional door in her songwriting. His young daughter had died years earlier, and Stevie wrote, "Has anyone ever written anything for you after hearing about her?" They even toured together in 1984, putting a relationship burning intensely under the extra pressure of life on the road. The romance, however, was tied to a dangerous period for both of them. Drugs were part of their lives, and Stevie later said that their mutual drug use made a lasting relationship impossible. According to her, Joe eventually went to Australia partly to get away from her because he feared one of them would die, and the other would be unable to stop it. The breakup crushed her. Stevie said it took her a very long time to get over him, if she ever truly did, because for a while she felt there was no other man in the world for her. By the time Rock a Little arrived in 1985, cocaine was taking control of her health. A plastic surgeon warned her that another hit could kill her. After touring in Australia in 1986, Stevie checked herself into the Betty Ford Center for 30 days. She later stressed that nobody forced her to do it. "I managed to save myself," she said. "I survived my cocaine." She remembered Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and thought about the music they never got to make. That frightened her enough to choose survival. Yet, getting free from cocaine led her into another problem that would quietly steal years from her. The addiction that stole years from her. After leaving rehab, Stevie was prescribed Klonopin to help keep her away from cocaine. What was supposed to help slowly became another addiction. During the late 1980s, she kept working, but the experience changed her. Fleetwood Mac released Tango in the Night in 1987, though Stevie was often away because of her solo schedule and recovery. Tensions with Lindsey were still alive. When he decided to leave Fleetwood Mac before the tour, John McVie later described an ugly physical confrontation between Lindsey and Stevie. The band went on without him, while Stevie's own life kept moving in a haze. The Shake the Cage tour was suspended while Stevie dealt with chronic fatigue, another sign that her body was struggling to keep pace. In 1988, she began working with producer Rupert Hine on The Other Side of the Mirror and became romantically involved with him. The album arrived in 1989, followed by touring in America and Europe. Stevie later said she had no memory of this tour because her Klonopin use had become so heavy. She still returned to Fleetwood Mac for Behind the Mask, released in 1990, and on the last night of that tour, she and Lindsey performed Landslide together again. But another fight was brewing, this time over music rather than romance. Stevie wanted to put Silver Springs on her solo collection Timespace, while Mick Fleetwood wanted to save it for a Fleetwood Mac box set. After the tour, she left the band. Meanwhile, Klonopin continued to flatten her life. She later called those years a non-time. She was not living through dramatic public chaos every day. She was simply losing the creative drive that had always carried her. By 1993, a fall at home finally made the danger impossible to ignore. She realized the medication was hurting her and entered a painful 47-day detox. Looking back, Stevie said Klonopin was worse for her than cocaine because it took away years in which she might have written, loved, married, or even adopted a child. Getting clean meant facing all of that lost time, but it also gave her a chance to rebuild. Old faces, new beginnings. Recovery did not make everything easy right away. Stevie released Street Angel in 1994, but she was unhappy with the finished album and hurt by criticism about her weight. For a time, she said she would not return to the stage unless she lost weight. Slowly, though, music and familiar people began pulling her back. During this period, Tom Petty helped restart her solo writing. He had remained an important friend, and when Stevie asked him to write a song for her, he refused and pushed her to write one herself. That challenge mattered. Stevie began creating again. In 1996, she reunited with Lindsey for the duet Twisted, and the following year, the classic Fleetwood Mac lineup returned for the dance. Before the tour, Stevie worked with a voice coach and changed her routine to protect her voice. The reunion also brought Silver Springs back into the spotlight, and its live performance earned a Grammy nomination. In 1998, Fleetwood Mac entered the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, placing Stevie once again beside people connected to both her greatest success and some of her deepest pain. Her renewed songwriting eventually led to Trouble in Shangri-La in 2001, which brought her solo career back to strong reviews and commercial success. Fleetwood Mac remained more complicated. Say You Will arrived in 2003 without Christine McVie, and Stevie later said she was unhappy with parts of the album and tour, especially because of conflicts with Lindsey and Christine's absence. Still, Stevie continued moving between Fleetwood Mac and the solo career that gave her more control. She toured with Don Henley in 2005 and performed with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers in 2006. Former romances had become stage partners, while old friendships had become creative lifelines. By then, Stevie's pattern was clear. People could change roles, disappear, or return, but music remained the constant shaping every part of her life. Why Stevie never chose the normal life. By the 2010s, Stevie was speaking more openly about why marriage and children had never become the center of her life. Looking back, she often returned to something her father had told her years earlier. Music would always consume her life. She said she had consciously chosen not to have children because her career demanded so much, and because she wanted to follow her art wherever it led. Her way of explaining it was simple. My mission maybe wasn't to be a mom and a wife. Maybe my particular mission was to write songs to make moms and wives feel better. She still had a large family around her. There were godchildren, her niece, her former stepson Matthew, and later Matthew's daughter. Stevie joked that being the crazy auntie was more fun anyway. Her mother had also given her a strong lesson about independence. Barbara told Stevie that she should never stand in a room full of men and feel unable to keep up, and never depend on a man to support her. Stevie carried that message into an industry where she often felt men were uncomfortable with her confidence. After Belladonna succeeded, she remembered people saying it would be hard to be Mr. Stevie Nicks. She agreed that it probably would be, unless the man was secure enough to enjoy her friends, her work, and her unusual life without becoming jealous. Stevie did keep dating. She revealed that when she was around 50, she had a relationship with a man around 30 who was not famous. She ended it after realizing she had already lived through the years he was just entering and did not want to repeat them. By 2020, she said she had not been in love since the early 2000s, but she still called herself a romantic. She believed love could appear unexpectedly because it had happened to her before. The difference was that she no longer needed a relationship to make her life feel complete. Her songs carried old feelings, while people from her past kept finding their way back into her story. Time changed everything except the memories. Stevie's later years proved that the people who shaped her life could return in unexpected ways. Her bond with Tom Petty lasted until his death in 2017. That same year, she joined him in London for Stop Draggin' My Heart Around, which became their final performance of the song together. In 2018, another old relationship reached a breaking point when Lindsey Buckingham was fired from Fleetwood Mac. Lindsey said Stevie had forced the choice. Stevie denied demanding his firing and said she had removed herself from a situation she considered toxic, leaving the band to decide what came next. She later described the split as a long time coming, and said it made her deeply sad because their history stretched back decades. After Lindsey suffered a heart attack in 2019, she sent him a note telling him to take care of himself and recover. That year, Stevie became the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, this time for her solo career, and Don Henley joined her to perform Leather and Lace. Her life kept circling back through music. She continued recording, touring, collaborating, and reaching younger artists. She worked with Lana Del Rey, Gorillaz, Dolly Parton, Harry Styles, and others. In 2024, she released The Lighthouse, while still speaking about performing for as long as her body allowed. The Buckingham Nicks album was finally reissued decades after its original release, bringing the beginning of Stevie and Lindsey's story back into view. For the reissue, Stevie shared an old letter she had written to her family, when they were still struggling. In it, she praised Lindsey's guitar playing and predicted he might become one of the greats, a reminder of how much belief existed before the bitterness between them. Then, in August 2026, Lindsey said the two were talking all the time now while working on a Fleetwood Mac documentary. He described the process as healing and suggested that 2027 could bring more developments. For two people who had spent years turning love, anger, distance, and memory into music, even simple conversation carried the weight of a very long history. Which person do you think had the biggest impact on Stevie Nicks' life, and why? And after everything Stevie and Lindsey went through, do you think some loves ever truly disappear? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.